The reason we moved here was to get away from the area we were in. And we moved here because nobody really knows us here, and they don't know our family secret, which is the fact that my father murdered my mother. And we don't really want anybody knowing it unless we have the opportunity to tell the story, because there's more to it than people see in the newspapers and on the radio. It was 6 o'clock when we got the call from a neighbor. There's a bunch of police cars at your parents' house, you better get over there and find out what's going on. I raced in and saw the police cars and went up to them and said, what's going on? He says, well, it appears as though that your father has killed your mother and then tried to take his own life. If they took September 23rd out of the calendar, I would be okay with that. Because I would rather not remember that day at all. I would rather just completely erase it from my mind. It was the most horrible day of my life. My mother's murder by my father has divided our family. My sisters are supporting my father. No, I haven't seen my mom's gravestone because it's wrong. In my opinion, it shouldn't have on it what it does. My mom, like nature, she didn't really care for wildfowl like I did and my father did, and yet my mom's headstone has got geese on it. And it says in sickness and in health. The plan is, because my sister is the power of attorney and she's the person who's steering this ship, is that she's going to have my father buried with my mother. Would you want to be buried with the person who murdered you? That's wrong, in my opinion, that's wrong. I went to see Mom's grave when there was no headstone on it. And I can't speak for a year down the road or 2 years down the road, but as it stands right now, I don't think I'll ever want to go to that gravesite. This is a picture of my mom and dad with Ben. That's the picture we look at every day. And everybody's happy. Okay, this is a couple of years ago. My brother Steve and son Ben out there duck hunting on the Bay of Quinte. This one here is a very cool picture of a very cool salmon. Holy, look at the size of it. It was a big salmon. And that one's been at Morrisburg at the Goose Sanctuary. So every time we walk by these pictures, we think of happier times. And Kathy was there. Oh, goodness. That's a cool picture. It's my mother, my grandmother, my son, and myself. Mom was always very happy, always smiling. You ever ask her what's wrong? What would she say?
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm not allowed to say that now.
No. I'd go to the photo album sometimes just to remind me how much happiness there is here.
Okay. Sorry.
Maternity pictures. He had no reason ever to do what he did to my mother. We have 3 psychiatric evaluations, all 3 of them different. We don't know if this was a psychological thing for sure, but the fact of me going crazy for whatever reason is something that I have to be aware of. It may be hereditary. I don't know that. I don't know if anybody could ever tell us that either. So our marriage, I love my wife dearly, and she's going to be keeping a close eye on me.
I'm not mad at him for what happened. It's nothing to do with him. I love him just as much today as I did before it happened, so. I won't trade him in.
We lost money on our house that we had because we had to sell it at a bad time of year, fast. So we more or less took the first offer that came along to get us going. And this is what we ended up with. This is a temporary home that we're in, and the people around here that I've met have been nice, but our home is where we put roots down. and we're not going to put roots here. These four walls, we call them home when we're here, but the old house was, it was the atmosphere, it was what we always wanted in a house. We came from a big house with a swimming pool, big garage, four-wheelers, tractors, boats, cabin cruisers, everything. It's the most amazing place to go at night. Actually, Dad and I used to walk down there at night just to listen to the animals. Now all we hear is the telephone ringing next door. I'd move back here tomorrow if I could. If I could. We had a lot of fun here. This was a lot of fun. If we hadn't moved, it would have ruined our life. Absolutely. I know it would have ruined my son's life. Ben was being tormented at school. My wife, Darcy, at work was getting a lot of customers with general concerns.
Yeah, I was getting to the point where I didn't even want to go to work. I couldn't handle the pressure of the customers all the time. I tried to deal with it, but it wasn't comfortable anymore. I just couldn't do it. And for Ben's 10th birthday, because 10's a special time, we invited a bunch of kids, and two of them stayed overnight, and one came just for the party, but he wasn't allowed to stay overnight, and the other ones, they weren't allowed to come. And it might not even have been the reason, but because that happened in September and his birthday was in November, it was still really fresh.
Hey, buddy! It just looked really odd to me that people were judging me and my wife and Ben for something that had been splashed all over the news over what happened with my dad. So Ben's being punished. And that broke his heart. Now, we haven't even told the teachers here what's going on because we want people to, again, Coburg is a small town, so we don't want people to treat Ben any different in schools. That's our main concern.
So when it first happened, we didn't tell them. We just said they were in an accident, and he was off school for a week, and we sent him back on the Monday, and the principal asked us if we had told him what had happened, and we said no. And she said, "You're going to have to." She said, "Because kids will say what happened." And she said, and then he's not going to trust you ever again because you lied to him. Well, it's kind of hard to tell your 9-year-old son that his papa murdered his grandma.
He gave me a great life. He gave us a good Christian upbringing, strong values, good morals. I was proud to call him my father. He was what I wanted to be. I looked at his life and I said, I want to do that. Loved my mother very much. Just about every time he went out, he would bring flowers to her. He'd write poetry to her. They had the perfect life, perfect retirement. But the ending of the story was certainly not the way that it should be. And it's gone going. It's not done. He's still alive. He's in prison.
We kind of lost both of them because we don't see him anymore either. I just said it was easier to talk about, right? I miss them both. So when I lost my dad, he took over my dad's spot.
I look at a picture of Mom, and there's the guy who murdered her. So do I love him for what he's done in the past, before this? Or do I hate him for what he's done now? My brothers have plans to visit Mom's grave on the first anniversary of her death. I'm not sure I can do it because of the headstone.
You know me better than that, don't you?
I've learned that my brothers I can trust in an event like this, which is not like a normal death, a normal, passing away of a parent. Everybody kind of wears different hats. I was very much the passive hat because I don't know if I was in shock or what. I just couldn't handle the event, so I hid inside myself. Then there's my identical twin brother, Andrew. Andrew's gone through a lot of anger. My brother Steve was very much the emotional person. He would very, very emotional.
Oh, you have to have manners.
No pressure.
Just pass me a drink, please.
After all this happened, we would gather in my garage a couple times a week. It wasn't a real scheduled thing, it just seemed to happen. And we didn't want Ben to hear it, and we really didn't want Darcy to know too much of everything that was going on. So we'd meet in the garage and we'd chuck the ball back and forth. It was just there. And we'd throw the ball around, and whoever had the ball, that's who was speaking. And we couldn't speak unless we had the ball. If you don't have the ball, don't speak. No, don't give it to Steve first.
Thanks.
I do want the ball back, though.
No. Out of 5 children, there's almost 5 different sets of emotions that do ping pong back and forth. He's a very evil man. He was a nice guy. He was a very evil man, but he gave us all our whole life. He's a very evil man just from that day on, that particular day, and it's always a but anything he could have done in his lifetime cannot be an excuse for what he did. And all of us are having a different degree of weighing that. My sisters have totally, seemingly forgiven him and are totally in support of him, so-called trying to get off these charges and trying to continue on with their life and his life as normal as it can be, where I personally would like to see a total, clear, 100% thorough investigation before anybody makes that decision.
Our whole family has been based on family. Our love for our family, and you don't screw with those family values. Nobody screws with those family values. Sorry.
Don't mess with the rules.
Don't mess with the rules. I've taken a very different role on this. I'm angry. I'm mad. I'm furious that this man has betrayed our love. He did the crime. He should do the time. Gee, I wonder who taught me that, eh?
How many times did we learn that since we were growing up? If you steal a chocolate bar, you take it back. Not that I ever did, but if you stole a chocolate bar from a store when you were a kid, he was the first one to march you back. He was the first one that took you guys to the police department and had the police come because you did something silly when you were young kids too.
Stole a loaf of bread from behind A&P. And he turned us in. Good lesson, well taught.
And you remembered it all your life.
Remembered it
haven't you?
our whole life, that's right.
Was it planned? We'll never know. But he had the knowledge. He had the knowledge. He was not injured in a vital area that would have killed him instantly. He was injured in severe areas of severe bleeding.
He lived. No person should have lived what he went through. I think it was very well executed.
He cut his throat, but not deep enough. He cut his wrist, but not deep enough. He cut himself in the abdomen, which would cause an amazing amount of bleeding, but he did it. How he went over the pain is beyond me, but he had a number of wounds to himself that could cause a lot of bleeding.
It's not an anniversary I want to celebrate.
It's almost like writing a eulogy again. What do you do?
I'd like to put flowers on the grave.
I would like to have
I
you put flowers on the grave for me. If you're going to go to the grave, can you put some flowers on there for me as well? I can't look at that headstone and possibly... It's a disgrace. Today is the first anniversary of Mum's death. I want to think of nothing but Mum today, but I can't. I can't look at Mum in my mind and say this is the way she was and this was wonderful and everything else without Dad being there putting a knife to her. I can't think of that. You know, Steve's got binders that are a foot thick on work he's done. And it's not, all it's got us so far is the opportunity to fill out a risk assessment form. This is my risk assessment. What do you think? 118 pages of why I think our father is not safe for society.
These are my opinions. These are the opinions of paid psychiatrists that they paid many thousands of dollars to try to get him off. These are 2 different hospital reports from Kingston Psychiatric Hospital explaining all their many testings, all of which do not give me a reason why to trust them. Yeah, look at that.
Stabbed 10 times, 4 in the front, 6 in the back.
That's the nightmare. I can't even look at it still after a year.
And this is just out and out
Murder.
barbaric murder. There's what I have to deal with. A 2.5-year-old son that wants a picture for grandma. How do you explain to a 2.5-year-old boy that he won't see his grandma again because Pop is a butcher? I can't do this.
There will probably be probation, parole, something like that, some restrictions. But essentially, he will be a free man. Monday, September 23rd, 2002, 1 year after Mom passed away. I wrote a poem for Mom, and Mom's listening right now. So in case she didn't read the paper, I'll say it to her. It's been 1 year since you went away. Your spirit lives in us each and every day. Your love and laughter is etched in our mind, as are the fond memories you left behind. This pointless tragedy cannot be forgotten ever, but the love of our mother will be forgotten never. Dear Mother, you gave us purpose, pride, and a clear path to see. We love you always. Darcy, Ben, and me, Alan.
Thousands of hours, not even hundreds, thousands of hours of trying to find out the truth as objectively as possible. That's the story. The story is a terrible, terrible form of abuse.
I have to tell myself what gets me through the day. And if I tell myself that he was a bastard and I should have done this and I should have done that, I won't make it through the day. I have to put good, strong, happy pictures in my mind in order to keep going. And that's what I'm doing. I don't care what anybody else says. And Steve, you're entitled to your opinion. Andrew, you're entitled to your opinion. That's okay. I am too. And before this happened, I had an awful lot of respect for him. I thought he was a great guy. I didn't see this coming. I didn't see it coming. It's one of those things I realize I've got to do. I have to go to the cemetery. I'm not going to see it. I won't even look at the stone. I'm not there for the stone. I don't want to look at the stone. Never did. I'm not even going to look at that side of it. I don't want anything to do with it. Should probably make sure it is Mom's though. My mom's gravestone shouldn't have on it what it does. It says in sickness and in health. I can't do it exactly right, Mom. Expect that of me. This is weird doing this, but nothing to do with that side. I think it's wrong. I go day by day, and I do what it takes to get through the day. But I don't think I've really started healing. The day my father dies, I will start to heal. They're just pictures, but they're my heritage. this had to happen.
Could have said something to ease the pain. Just a few words would have made a happy home again. We were dangling